Please be seated. When I lived in Chicago, which I did for 28 years, 28 very happy years, I must say, the last 5 years, my nephew, who at the time was 15 when he came to me, lived with me, so he was with me through high school. And he went to a Waldorf school, and the Waldorf schools, and this is a high school, and it had just been set up in Chicago. For those of you who aren't familiar with them, have wonderful service learning built into the curriculum. Every year they took a field trip where they did something to help other people. And the senior year, the young people went to Mexico, where they helped build a school at a little village that the school had a relationship with and had been working with for many years. And while they were there, so they were kind of staying a little bit apart from the village, and I think there must have been maybe 5 or 6 kids in this class. And at one point, 3 of the girls decided that they wanted to go into the village to get a drink. And of course, this was not something the staff would approve, so they decided to sneak out. And they told my nephew, and my nephew thought, or so it was reported to me, it would not be good for these girls to go in without some kind of escort, and so he went with them. So the 3 girls... No, but I'll explain soon. There is some credence to his story. And so the girls went to the bar, they each ordered a beer, he didn't, and then they were discovered. It was discovered that they were gone, and so the staff went into town. They found, it was not a very large village. They went to the bar, which is probably one of the few places around that anyone could go to, and they found the kids there. And it was reported to me by one of the teachers that there were 4 kids and there were 3 drinks, which is what made me think that he was actually telling the truth. And so they all came back, and the staff were really angry. I mean, these were people who had had relationships with these children for a long time. I mean, Waldorf schools, it's not about you have a different teacher every year. They had been teaching them for all of their years of high school, and for some of the kids who had been in the Waldorf school since kindergarten, they had known them since they were 5 and 6 years old. So the staff were really angry that they had felt betrayed by them. And so they all, they kind of hashed it out the way good people do with adolescents that, get into trouble like this. And I remember one of the staff members talking to me afterward, and she said, you know what? After that, the trip was better. It was better. And I said, and when I talked to her, I said, that for me is one of the paradoxes of life. That it is when there is struggle, when there is difficulty, when we do step out of line, that something can come from it that makes things better. And that's the story that I kept thinking of when I was thinking about Jesus' statement that the poor will always be with us. Because I think of the poor not as people who don't have things. I think we all know something about poverty. I grew up in material poverty, but I did not grow up in spiritual poverty, and I did not grow up in intellectual poverty. My mother took me to the public library during the summer once a week, where I got a tall pile of books, returned the ones I'd read, and went off again to do that. But I did have material poverty. But I think all of us know something about poverty. All of us who have experienced a loss of a loved one understand that poverty of feeling, that emptiness that comes from losing someone we love. All of us who have had to struggle with difficulties in our workplaces know about that struggle, where things are not going well, where we're not getting along with people, where we feel like we're being untreated fairly, or where we realize that we have not done something right, that we have behaved unethically. Those are times when we experience poverty. And I believe that in some way. Felt that in some way. And I think that the paradox is that it is from those feelings of poverty that real richness can come. It is from those struggles that we, if we really grapple with them, that we can become richer, that our relationships can become richer, that we can more deeply feel the way that God can be a God of presence for us. Not a God who solves all our problems. That's not what God is for me. God is, for me, someone with whom, as it was once described to me, someone with whom I can be on the cross. Sometimes you have to be with Jesus on the cross. But that ends. You get taken down, and we can look forward to a resurrection. But the poverty is part of the human condition. It's part of being human. And the paradox, which I don't understand why we have to go through struggles in order to grow. Why we have to go without in order to really appreciate something. But unfortunately, that's the human condition. That is the human condition. I mean, I know from my own experiences of material poverty, I feel there are many gifts I take from that. And when I read a recent National Geographic article about food and the waste of food, where I learned that more than half of the food that is produced gets thrown away. More than half. Somewhere along the road. The last bit is the part we throw out from our refrigerators, but way early on, they're throwing out stuff because it doesn't meet our standards of beauty. The carrots with 2 legs, which actually my co-op always puts in the carrot. So, I keep committing carrots with 2 legs. I grow them myself. But, you know, there's a lot of waste, and someone who has gone hungry, I have a very hard time wasting food. I have a very hard time not eating everything on my plate. And I think that's a gift. I believe that's a gift. My brother once, who of course grew up with me, had a very hard time when his children would not finish their plates. Just, they wouldn't finish their plates. And, you know, he feels like, how can they waste food? How can they throw food away? And you know, again, it's the paradox. I don't understand why. I would not wish my son to go hungry. I don't. And he hasn't gone hungry when he's been with me. You know, the hardships that we experience are not things we wish on our children. But we have to acknowledge that we have growth from them. We become better people from them. We become closer to God through them. And so I think we have to, you know, I know when I think about my own son, I think, you know, I want him to be happy. And last year I started thinking, you know, that's not what I want for him. I want him to have a meaningful life. I want him to do things for people. That's what I want for my son. I don't care if he's happy. I want him to do something. That's important. And that something can be little or seemingly little, because I believe very strongly in the power of one. I believe that the good that we do individually can have a ripple effect that we cannot begin to fathom. Cannot begin to fathom. So, nard. I looked up nard at 3 o'clock in the morning. I was thinking, I'm preaching today, I don't even know what nard really is. Nard is made from a plant. It's the root, and it has, it's a very oil-rich, very, very fragrant. It's grown in like India, Tibet, and it's something that had been transported to the Middle East from, you know, at that time, it was a pretty faraway place, for a very long time. The Egyptians used nard, it was used in the Middle East, and it was a wonderfully fragrant thing. And the passage today, sensual, oh my goodness, spreading Jesus' feet with this wonderful fragrant thing, drying it off with Mary, I think it was Mary's hair. I mean, this was a wonderful thing. And I think when we think about also need to think about abundance, that the abundance is there. The abundance is there, and it will be recaptured when we are in a place where we feel poverty. We will again have relationships that are significant to us. We will again be able to feel whole. We will again have what we need to nourish us. And that abundance is so beautifully shown in that passage about Jesus and the nard being spread on him. And that's, I think, what our our Lent, not Easter yet. Lent season offers us a way of being able to remember those feelings, those places of poverty, and to realize that we will again come to that wonderful, fragrant, exuberant, abundant place of wholeness. That, I think, is what we are offered. I loved one of the lines from the psalm, so I'd like to end with that. The Lord has done great things for us, and we